Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. My name is Paladin Dance, and today I'm going to be covering some Mythic Plus mistakes that I've been seeing recently. So I'll be going over actual mechanical mistakes, stuff that's wrong with mechanics in groups, and I'll also be going over people's attitudes towards Mythic Plus, towards pickup groups, or even attitudes within pre-made groups. The point of this video is going to be to try and help you guys improve. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know if you guys have any tips or any things that you do in your Mythic Plus keys to try and help you out and help your group out. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic. So the first topic that I wanted to touch on in this video are the MDI pools that people think they can do on live keys. Now, the first cup of MDI happened this past weekend, and a lot of people saw things that they didn't know existed or didn't know to be possible. Now, there are definitely some things that you can learn from the MDI that are applicable to live keys, such as the rogue using the orbs in Necrotic Wake. I had known about that for about 2 weeks already before the MDI happened, but a lot of people didn't know about that. So using a strat like that where it's as simple as just inviting a rogue, having them do a simple trick to get them to crit 100% of the time and then use the orb, that's going to save you a lot of time in the dungeon, and it's very applicable to a live key. However, you have a lot of people that will end up watching the MDI and they see these humongous pools and they try and replicate it in live keys. And I'm advising you, I'm telling you, do not do this. It's not going to help you out, first off, and second, it's just not feasible in live keys, especially in a pickup group environment. The way you should be going about doing your keys is using the same strategy until it doesn't work anymore. For example, let's say you did a 15 the other side and you time it and you had 5 minutes left over. If you go in with that same exact group into a 16 key and you do the same exact strategy, you should definitely be able to time it, right? You had 5 minutes left over in the 15. Let's say in the 16 you have 3 minutes left over. It took you 2 minutes longer. If you go into the 17 of the same key with the same group, you should probably be able to time it as well. This time maybe you only have a minute left, or maybe even like 40 seconds, right? So you're cutting it close. Now you get to the point where you might have to quote unquote do an MDI pool, right? There's no reason to change your strategy during the other keys. The 15, the 16, the 17, the same pools, the same strategy worked. So there's no point in changing it because it's working and you're timing the keys. You know exactly what you're going to do. You've already done it before. You're comfortable doing it. Don't change it. However, you reach the 18 and you say to yourself, well, we only had 30 seconds left on the last one, boys. So we're going to have to do something here. And then you're going to start combining a couple extra trash packs together, right? You're going to have to change the route a little bit. You might have to double pool a pack that you usually don't double pool. The reason you're doing it is because if you don't do that, your group does not have the throughput to finish with the old strategy. I've seen too many groups on live keys, many groups that I've been a part of, try and do these random MDI pools where they pool like 2 or 3 things together, and you're not even in Discord. So not only can you not communicate what cooldowns you have up, what defenses you have up, you can't even coordinate the usage of those cooldowns. Maybe your mage doesn't have combust up and you just pulled 3 packs for no reason. Maybe your hunter doesn't have binding shot and your tank's not going to be able to kite and he's just going to get destroyed because he's tanking 3 packs. And if you hadn't done that big pool, I guarantee you probably would have still timed the key. The only time you have to do bigger pools is when the throughput of your group is no longer enough to get you through the key. Otherwise, keep doing the same strategy. There's no point. Why take the extra risk of pulling 2 or 3 packs when you normally would only pull 1 for the reward of saving maybe 40 half a minute when you were already going to time the key, right? If you were going to time the key with a minute left over, what is the point of pulling 3 packs instead of 1? So you can finish with a minute and a half? Who cares? You already timed the key. That's what matters. So I've seen a lot of groups make that mistake, and what I try and do is before the dungeon, even if I'm not in Discord with the group, to try and outline what we're going to do, how we're going to do certain bosses, how we're going to maybe do certain pools, the big important ones, where we're going to lust, plan out the dungeon so that you don't end up doing random pools that, might be too big or doing these MDI pools that are not necessary. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention in the video is more about the attitude that a lot of players have towards M+. And most people don't like to blame themselves for mistakes, and most people don't even like to acknowledge their own mistakes. But if you have that kind of attitude in M+, you're going to get nowhere. Every time that I die, every time that my group dies, every time that somebody else in my group dies, I ask myself, did I do something wrong? Could I have done something to not die there? Did I have a defensive up and I died? If I did, it's my fault entirely. I should have used the defensive. Did my healer die? Yes. Why did he die? Maybe he had a spiteful coming after him. Maybe I could have thrown him Blessing of Protection and he wouldn't have died, right? Maybe I could have helped him out. I guarantee you that you and your whole group makes multiple mistakes every time you step into a dungeon. I can watch back film of myself doing a dungeon and we do great, and we key it with like 5 minutes left, and I can still point out stuff that I could have done better. You can always do things better, you can always improve. So the attitude of people trying to blame others just does not work. It's not going to get you anywhere. You have to try and improve yourself. Whenever you die, you should first ask yourself what you did wrong. And if you absolutely cannot find anything wrong, then maybe it was a collective effort, right? Maybe the group as a whole did something wrong. But I can guarantee you that 9 out of 10 times, if you die and you're just pulling trash, it was probably your fault. The majority of the time, if you die and all you're doing is you're doing some trash, or even if you're in a boss fight, 9 out of 10 times, it's probably your fault that you died. But with that said, most of the time, players aren't going to blame themselves, they're going to blame somebody else. For example, it's Spiteful Week and you're playing melee class. You're aware that it's spiteful, so every single time that you see packs getting low, you should be cognizant of the fact that they might fixate on you. You shouldn't be dying to a spiteful meleeing you. You should have CC ready, your group should have CC ready. Bare minimum, if you know that the group isn't that good or coordinated and the spitefuls are not going to be CC'd, you should just turn around and run away. Even if you're melee, just stop doing damage. Because it's better to stop doing the damage, run out for a little bit, than to die and then release, right? You shouldn't ever release really either. But then you die, you release, and then you have to make the group wait for you. But I see a ton of people, they die, and they'll blame their class, or they'll blame somebody else, right? Oh, I died to Spiteful. Imagine playing melee in 2021. This is so stupid. Why is it so easy for range players? Listen, I understand. I'm a tank, and I just have to run away from the packs these days. It's just a kiting meta. I can't even stand and do my rotation. It sucks. Do ranged have it easier? Yeah. Is Spiteful really bad for melee? Yeah. Can you be upset about that? 100%. I would be, just like I am that I had to kite all the time. If I die to a Spiteful as melee, am I going to blame Blizzard? No. I'm going to blame myself for being an idiot and standing in the Spiteful when I knew that the Spiteful was going to come. You know it's going to happen. The only person you have to blame is yourself. And if you don't blame yourself, then you're never going to improve. You're just going to be stuck doing the same level keys because you're not putting in the effort into improving. Other people will blame their specs or their classes, right? Oh, I'm playing Survival Hunter, I'll never be able to do the keys a Marksmanship Hunter can do. Meanwhile, that person is blaming their spec and they're just doing a 13 key. Look, when you get to a certain limit, and I'm talking about the top 10 teams in the world, right? If the top 10 teams took specs that were not meta, I guarantee you they could still do something like 21, 22 keys even with those off meta specs because they're that good. Now, it's not to say that there are not different class spec differences and that some specs are better than others. That's definitely the case, right? If you're a Marksmanship Hunter, you're definitely going to do more damage at the end of the dungeon than a Survival Hunter in the hands of the same player. But that doesn't mean that you can't finish your 13 key because you're a Survival Hunter and the other guy's a Marksmanship Hunter. The reason you're not finishing your 13 key is because maybe you stepped in a mechanic and you died and you shouldn't have. Maybe your group had a really bad route. Maybe your group didn't coordinate CC properly, so you guys were slower throughout the dungeon. I guarantee you the reason you're not finishing your 13 or you're having trouble with your keys is not because your spec sucks. It's because of your attitude towards the game. When you start blaming other things like your spec, the fact that you're melee versus ranged, when you start blaming Blizzard, many of those things are valid, right? Like many of those things you can complain about, right? Like I myself personally, as a protection paladin, I wish I could be as tanky as a Havoc Demon Hunter. I wish I could have that. However, whenever I fail a key, I don't blame Blizzard and say, oh, the reason I failed this key is because I'm not as tanky as Havoc. No, because I've seen other prop paladins do higher keys than I can. So I know that if they can do it, I have the ability to do it myself. It's just A, I did something wrong, or maybe B, my group did something wrong, or maybe you're just not coordinating properly. There's something wrong, and that's why you're not being successful. It's not the only person there is to blame is yourself. Now, it's not to say that sometimes someone doesn't hard grief a key, right? Sometimes you might have someone butt pull some insanely huge pack and they wipe the entire group. Sometimes you call for an invis pot at a certain time and someone didn't read before the dungeon for some reason, and they go and they pull a ton of mobs, they wipe the group, the key's griefed, right? But even in those keys, I guarantee you that you could still learn from that key. Even though someone hard griefed it, even though you maybe were going to time it, you can still learn from that. You can still learn from the keys that you timed, because you still made mistakes in those. That's the kind of attitude that you need in order to be better in M+. A lot of the M+ community, and just a lot of the WoW community, just complains a lot, but they don't look at themselves before they try and complain. Like, the only time a spec really matters is when you're at the highest level. Say your team is pushing a level 30 key. You're obviously going to want the best classes and the best specs because you're pushing like the highest thing that is possible, right? And the more inferior specs are probably only going to be able to push 27 keys, right? They'll probably be like 3 key levels down. But a lot of people are complaining when they're pushing a 13 or a 15, yet there are people with those very same specs pushing way higher keys. So in that case, it's not your spec that's failing you, it's you who are failing yourself. So that's a lot of what I've seen personally. I've just seen a lot of people trying to do these huge MDI pools, and I've seen people always, if they die, they try and blame the healer. The healer wasn't healing enough, but you look at the healing meters and he's doing 8k HPS, so he's definitely healing. Are you sure you didn't step in something you didn't have to step in? Maybe you should have used the defensive. A lot of people try and play the blame game instead of just looking at themselves and saying, okay, what could I have done better? What can I do next time to improve? That's what you should be doing every single time. If you're not doing that, you're not really going to improve that much in M+. In addition, if you're doing MDI pools, thinking that it's going to work out like MDI, that's not going to go well either. So just some things I've seen in M+, that I think the community could improve upon. But I'm probably just talking to a wall because, the amount of people that will see this video and actually try and change their behavior is going to be basically none. The WoW community always cries about everything and blames everyone else but themselves. And again, it's not to say that certain specs and classes need buffs, right? Like Protection Warrior, yeah, they need buffs. They should probably be doing more damage. Frost DK, yeah, they need buffs. They should probably do a little bit more damage, right? Things like that, they still need buffs. You should still cry out for those buffs to Blizzard. The type of thing I'm trying to say here is that Frost DK doing less damage isn't the reason you died to a Spiteful. You being melee isn't the reason you died to a Spiteful. You died to Spiteful because it was your own fault. But anyways, guys, that's it for today. Just having more of like an open-ended discussion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know what you guys see in your M+ keys, what happens to you guys. Tell me all your M+ stories. I'm going to be doing a Spires of Ascension guide next, so be looking out for that. And with that said, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one.